You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Sean Saccomandi.
Yes, how's it going?
That was perfect, wasn't it?
That was right on.
Okay, don't ask me to do that again.
No, the one time the beginning is enough. I think we're good now.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Sean, and what do you do professionally?
Well, professionally, I am a government contractor who teaches the Navy on how to navigate their ships. That's the full 9 to 5 job, and it's come a long way to that. I know it's not something you just break into, but I was in the Navy for 20 years. I just retired. Let's see, well, yeah, 2 years ago, last month, and I've been doing this for about a year and a half. And that's the full time, like I said, 9 to 5 job, and on the side, I do a couple things as well. I am a budding, almost full time artist, and I also own a food truck, which I take out on the weekends with a buddy of mine that I know from high school. So I'm always busy, always doing something.
I gotta ask about the Navy thing. Is this just because the whole sea navigation system is a little bit complicated if you've never ever been on a boat before, like learning starboard, learning all these types of things? Like, what the fuck does swab the poop deck mean? I don't know, but we got to figure it out.
Exactly. So yeah, the last few years, navigation itself has taken a wild turn. It used to be, how you would see on the movies. They have the charts out and the little tools, and they used to figure out how to get somewhere by using the stars and your latitudes and longitudes. In the past 10 years, it's taken a wild turn into this whole electronic GPS style age, and it's all outsourced to companies now. The whole military, doesn't work on their own systems like they used to back in the old days. It's all big companies putting all these major pieces of equipment on ships, and they need people to teach them how to learn, to use the stuff. So
Is it pretty simple or is it extremely complicated? It seems like technology is supposed to make it pretty easy, but the way you have to learn the machine seems like it's very difficult. I mean, I don't know how many times I was on my buddy's boat and I would try and work his fish finder, and I was like, "What? Where the fuck? Like, how do you turn this thing on?" He was like,
yeah,
It
exactly.
says we're 17 feet deep is where the fish are." I'm like, "I don't understand what that means, and how are you getting that?"
Yeah, how the hell would you know? I mean, it's wild. But yeah, it's exactly what you said. The systems are actually pretty easy to use. It's plug and play. Once everything's up and running, it's good to go. The other thing is that when the ship is out, I mean, the ships goes out to sea for like 7 to 9 months. There's nobody there to fix them. So we teach them all the ins and outs. If something goes wrong, if there's a major catastrophe, how to keep it running. Because, like I said, there's just nobody out there. These guys are out there; they have to do it themselves.
Well, we learned
So,
from the Titanic. I mean, we lost Leonardo
if
DiCaprio, so it's like can't have that ever happen again. Do you
the
ever
dude,
think about that though? Like if you look at the Titanic, like just the movie in general, whatever, it's like if that was a real situation, not having the proper steering or maybe lacking to be able to see an iceberg and then you hit something like that and the whole boat starts going down, like that movie was intense. If you didn't cry in that movie, I don't know what's wrong with you. You might just like be able to sit through Old Yeller. That was difficult too.
yeah, it's brutal. You never want to get into a situation like that. And damn it, if Leo had some education, maybe he could have saved the ship. So it would have been a
It made me look at cruises completely differently. Like whenever my brother is a big fan of 311, I like them too, but
oh hell yeah.
they always do a cruise every year, and so do the Impractical Jokers. I'm like, fuck, I don't want that happening. What happens if you hit an iceberg? They're like, it's July. I'm like, I don't give two shits. There's not enough endless sushi at a buffet or something can give me on a cruise ship or shuffleboard that would make me want to go on there just because you're stuck out there for days.
Yeah, you have no idea. You're not in any kind of control at all. You're just along for the ride. God forbid something happens.
It just reminds me of, like, I don't want to bring it to this, but like the Pearl Harbor documentary where they were showing the people in the boats that were going and sinking underwater and how many people didn't get out. That's like
Oh
my
yeah.
biggest fear. It's like, imagine just being in a room, you can't get out, and there's just water slowly filling up. It feels like a game of Saw.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's weird because it is in the back of your mind like the entire time you're out. I've been on several different ships and we've gone out. I've spent years, cumulatively, years at sea, and it's always kind of you're always thinking like, all right, who's up there working? When your time is off and you're just kind of bebopping around the ship, shooting the shit with your friends, and you're like. Where are we? What's going on out there? Is something going to happen? And yeah, man, it's always a morbid uh, sense of understanding when you're out there that anything can happen at any time and you're really not in control of it. So it's pretty wild.
Well, I worked on the water. I mean, I live in a beach town of Ocean City, Maryland, so we got water on one
All right.
side and water on the other. So
Oh
I was
yeah.
a I was a jet ski guide for so many years. I remember when I first started learning how to work a boat, like the craziest thing is when you get in an impactful situation, like something where everything's falling across at once and you don't know what to do, you've never had that happen before, you go into a state of panic. I mean, I remember just literally just cruising along in a pontoon boat, then suddenly the thing starts going like I'm running over something, and the
Yeah.
boat's like slowly stopping, everything's shaking. I'm in this driver position. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? I figure I need to trim the motor up because I'm starting to hit sand. I'm getting close to a sandbar. Like if you don't know the waters, you don't know how to navigate. It makes it difficult if you've never been on that voyage before. Before they looked at captains with experience. Now they're looking at like what technology do you have on your boat?
Yeah. What's going to get you out of that situation without you even having to do anything? And that's great. I mean, that's awesome that has come to that. But at the same time, it doesn't really help you out emotionally at that moment. you know, you're in a full freak out situation. I've been in plenty of situations where uh, you're kind of relying on other things to happen, and when that doesn't happen, you got to jump in and take care of things. And thank God those things happened later in my career where I was already so used to the rhythm of things, and you could just jump in, and it's kind of like a version of yourself doing it. Because after it's all done, you kind of step back and you're like, damn, I just took care of that. It's and everything was all right because I kind of just already knew what was going on and made it all right. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
When it comes to just the idea of with the Navy and everything, what do you think the biggest problem is with using the little technology? I feel like a lot of old ship captains or something are going to be on the point of like technology can only go so far. I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Battleship or something like that, they got these giant electronic warfare EMT type weapons on their boat systems. I'm like, are we that far? Like, is it like it feels like that's like one of the most difficult things too. Like you talk about boats or something crossing enemy lines or going into another person's territory. You know how fucking hard it is to keep a boat on track? Like you don't even think nobody ever keeps this into their mind. And I had to tell people as a jet ski guide for so long, or if you're just driving a boat, there are no brakes on the water. You can have something that drops down, like jet skis, the newer ones have brakes that'll drop a crate down. But you got to think if you're going 40 miles an hour, it's not a dead stop brake like your car. It's just going to slow you down. You still have the inertia and the current that's still pushing you. I don't know how ships don't cross lines, like when they go borderline right onto the state or whatever, the enemy lines or something. It's like, as soon as they cross over, we're going to shoot them. And the captain's like, I'm edging
Exactly.
it. I'm just like, I'm not touching you, but I'm touching you.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing right now in the Navy. There's a lot of because of this technology that's coming out and being put on these ships, there is there's a huge divide between the old school, old style Navy officers and stuff that aren't going anywhere. They've been in the Navy for 50 years now, and the way things and navigation is actually a huge part of this. Weapons are great. They'll throw any brand new weapon on there to take care of situations. Everybody loves that. But things like navigation, engineering, systems that are hugely been updated in the past few years. And you got these old heads that, number one, don't want to move forward because it's the way they did it, so it's the way it worked, and they want to stick with that. And then there's the young crowd that's coming in that is all cell phone technology, computer technology, and hit the buttons and things work. So there's a huge clash with that right now, and the thing is, like with these buffer lines and stuff, because I've been in plenty of those situations. I was stationed in the Middle East several times, and we actually have to deal with that a lot. So we have to put on a huge, like 5 miles between what they say their line is and what we say the line is. And there's usually about 5 miles in between that nobody messes with. So you ensure that nobody's coming out pissed off, because it does happen. We've seen it with a few countries. So I don't want to get into too many details, but I've been around a few countries where there was issues, and they had their Navy pretty much come out and kind of tangle with us a little bit, and get angry on the radios and kind of do some maneuvering stuff to push us away. And they were completely wrong, because we know that area, but what their country says and what our country says, has been a little bit different. So you do get into those scuffles, and you do see that happening, which is it gets to that heightened awareness. You start, the hair starts standing up, and you're like, oh shit, something's going to happen. Like, this is it. This is what we trained for. And you think something's going to happen, but it never actually does.
I feel like, yeah, it'd be hard to resist, like teach old dog new tricks, I would
Yeah,
say. I mean, if you've learned the system and you've been doing it for 40, 50 something years, you know how difficult it is to have this whole new thing that makes everything easier. But it's even trying to learn it for them. It might be easier for a young kid or a younger person coming up starting it. But it's not easy for a person that's been using the same system over and over again. You get comfortable, you get into a routine, and it
right.
creates difficulties. I mean, you want to make sure you're at the best of your ability when you're leading a military force as well.
Yeah, exactly. And these people don't want to hand the torch over a lot of times. That's what they got, and that's what they're hanging on to. That's what they've known. That's what's worked for them. So any kind of change, I mean, in any situation, it doesn't have to be the military. In any situation like that, it's tough to hand over the torch to young people to say, hey, it's about time that you get to that point where you know more than I do now. Take this and run with it. Because a lot of these guys, I mean, I hate to say it, like I said, I've seen a lot of guys retire and have a really hard time outside of the military, because they're used to that structure, they're used to that leadership, that type of authority, and they get out in the civilian world and they don't have that. You're just like regular schmo, working at Home Depot now, and they can't handle it. So a lot of the guys try to hang in there and stick with it. It's kind of at some point hurting instead of helping out.
How did do you go from government contracting this? Like, have you contracted any super like big government buildings? I mean, only thing I think I know a little bit about it when it comes to my mom used to tell me how her dad used to or was contracted at one point to do the tiles in the Pentagon before 9/11
Sure.
happened. So I thought that was really, really interesting that he got to go in there and see the floor maps and see everything like that. I thought I was pretty curious.
Yes. So it's these companies that are hired by the government, to work for different contracts that they have in the military. Mine just happens to be navigation, but there's several buildings like in our area, like in Philly. It's down at the Navy Yard now. It used to be a fully operational Navy base. Now it's mostly Urban Outfitters owns 90% of the Navy base now. But there's a lot of government buildings down there that still have contracts with the military. So yeah, we you're usually stuck in one area. And everybody has their area of what they do. I have a department that does stuff for engineering, department that does stuff for submarines. Weapons are down around that area, and yeah, but mine just happens to be the navigation area.
I try and think like if I was going to be a government contractor or just a contractor in general, I really want to start fixing bathrooms.
Yeah, right.
Like there should definitely not be a urinal in between another urinal. Like I don't know what it is, if it's just recently or if people want a sense of connection because they're not getting it through conversation, that they want to pee right beside you. But the common courtesy when you go to a urinal, and yes, this is a bit of a tangent. I think
Nah, right on.
you're starting to notice how the podcast goes. But I'll be pissing at a urinal. Next thing I know, a dude walks in. I'm like, oh, he's going to go to the one all the way to the left. So there's a space in between us, like a normal person. It's happened
Exactly.
probably the past 15 times now. Some dude just goes right in the middle and he doesn't do it right. And when I mean he doesn't do it right, I don't mean he takes a shit in the thing. I mean, he goes extreme with it, like unbuckling the pants, putting his hand up on the wall and like just going And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my God. And like,
you're not even there.
I'm a shy pisser in public. Like if the next thing I know, like I hear someone start talking, and I'm like, "Yo, is that dude taking a shit in there?" And my mind will start going on that. Like, I wonder what he had to eat, and like it just goes off on this weird ass tangent. And my buddy's like, "Just do math. That shit don't work." I failed math like 6 times. The farthest I can get to is 2 plus 2, and that's not enough to get you concentrated on that. So I'm sitting there, and I'll stop mid pee, and I'm like, I really have to pee now. And this dude, I mean, hardcore, heavy breathing. He was like
Right.
in his 30s, but you could tell he smoked. And I'm just sitting there like, really, bro? Really? And he goes, what? I'm like, there's a perfectly good urinal all the way to the left. Why would you choose the one in the middle? Sorry, man, I couldn't hold it. I'm like, dude, I've been holding it for an hour and a half, and now I'm holding it again because you're right beside me. He goes, why are you being weird about it? I'm like, am I? Am I being weird about it?
I don't think it's me. And it's so true. Those are people that are way too comfortable in like locker rooms and stuff. There's an etiquette. There's a dude protocol when you go into the bathroom. You always leave that urinal in between unless it's a no win situation, and you never get that comfortable. You never drop down to the ankles and just go for it.
Well, you want that old man confidence, man. Like every time you go into a
It's
gym, there's
insane.
always one old naked guy. And I thought it was like I hadn't really seen it at my gym, but like if they're changing, they'll take their shirt and they'll get in their tighty whities and stuff, and they don't give two shits.
Not at
And
all.
but my buddy took a picture and put it up on Snapchat, and it was him flexing in the mirror. And I noticed in the background there was a naked old guy, and you just saw the fucking dick, like
Yeah, right.
in the back corner. I screenshot it and sent him. I was like, dude, I know you're like looking at your muscles, but did you notice who's in the background? And he goes, holy shit, man. He had it all over social media. Everybody was probably screenshotting it. But I'm like, that's what you want in life, is that old man naked confidence. But don't do the confidence where you can piss next to somebody in the urinal. I mean, if I was going to be a government contractor, I would take out that middle urinal. I would make the toilets angled a little bit so you don't have to stress so much when you got to relieve yourself. I just make it more comfortable. I mean, they're doing the toughest positions. You're working security, you're working just hell, if you work at Walmart, you got a tough position. Shit.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's a comfortable shit.
Hey, you're exactly right. And in the Navy, I mean, people you have. I mean, unfortunately, you have to be way too. I mean, you're living on a ship with like usually 3, 4, 500 other dudes, and women now too. But for the most part, all the ships that I've been on are smaller, so they don't have it. They're not outfitted for women, so it's mostly dudes hanging around. And once you get comfortable with dudes that much, it just gets insane. It's nobody cares. You're living your day to day life, and you kind of forget the other people around you. And I'm usually the one that kind of reminds people, like, yo, yeah, can you rope it in a little bit? This is a little uncomfortable, and it's you got to keep people in check because it does get a little bit out of control. And you're like, come on, man, like just cover up a little bit when you're walking around where people sleep.
It's just that's the whole reason I wouldn't want to go to prison. The whole fact is that there's a
I
toilet,
couldn't
or
do it.
I couldn't, not with the metal toilet, dude, in the middle of the floor between everybody. And then you figure out that like you have to grab water to be able to flush a lot of the shit down. So if you take a dump, you have to like, people will be screaming at you to pour some water on it because it'll start smelling. I'm like, all right, this is crazy. But it goes into a good thing. And you're going to really like this segue that I'm about to do. A
Mm.
urinal stall, all the graffiti or all the little scratch-ins are basically art. Why don't we make bathrooms more comfortable by installing art in there?
It's happening. I'm right with you with that part because I seen a lot of these breweries and stuff that I go to with the food truck, and bathrooms are getting like more and more creative, and I love that. There's a lot of bars down here in Philly that just let you go wild in the bathrooms, and I think that should be. Yeah, I mean, if people want to do that, because it's hysterical. You ever go in and read some of the shit that's in there? It's absolutely amazing.
Some of
And
the
I
stuff
think I
is like
think it.
scary too, dude. I'll give you this story for me. All right, so at my when I was going to college, I had probably about a 2.5 hour break in between classes. So there's a local, I guess, bargain store. They call it Ollie's Supermarket. Well,
Oh
they
yeah.
have the best deals for cereals. I'm talking about 169 for a giant family size box of Honey Smacks. You bet your ass I'm buying 50. So I literally went into the stall. It was probably around 9, maybe almost 10 o'clock. And I got a 2 hour kill over. So I'm like, I'm going to go in here and, take a shit. All right. I'm going to do it. Nobody's here, whatever. So I go in the stall and I'm looking, and you get to see the average, like, hey, fuck you, hey, call this number for a good time. And I'm just looking like
Yeah.
people are stupid. And then I look over to the right where the toilet paper is, and I see it says right up here, it says, be in this stall at this time on this date. And I saw it. I swear to you, I'm not making this up. I was in that stall on 11, I think it was 11:20 something, and it said the exact time, but it was 30 minutes away. I
Ugh.
got out of that stall, I walked out, and an employee went right into the bathroom exactly at that time.
Huh.
Yeah. There was a dude, I mean, there was a hole, like that whole thing, like glory hole, like be here this time, that dude. I have
You're
never
lucky.
been so fucking scared, and I still see that guy when I go into that Ollie's. I don't mention a damn thing.
Damn, that's impressive.
But that it was such a freak thing. Like I just randomly walk in, look over, and I'm like, oh, 11:20. What? I was like, that's today, and it's like that's half hour from now. And I'm looking at you see a hole. It's like I don't think he's coming to give me a hug. I think he's looking for something else. And that
Yeah, it's
immediately,
going down.
like that was a moment where I was like, holy shit! Like, whew, that was a close call.
That is damn, and I'm sure it happens all the time.
Yeah, they always talk about a gas station, but I would never expect like a bargain store and like right next to a fucking Dollar Tree too. I'm like, really?
Yeah, there
This
you
is,
go.
I guess. I mean, it's benefits. I guess.
Not at the truck stops anymore, man. It's branching out.
Yeah, they always talked about that too, and they always warn people. Like, cops would always be on the lookout for like a prostitute or something at a truck stop or something that get killed. I'm like, are truckers that bad of guys? Because I'm pretty sure if they're stopping at all, it's to take like a shit or it's to sleep.
Yeah, I don't think. Well, I mean, I don't know, but you're on the road for a while, and I'm sure someone. You always need. You're away from home, and if that's the best thing you can get, hey, man, go for it.
Well, even incorporating art into like a bathroom, like I
Yeah.
mean, that's a stressful place in general. Like that's where you go to relieve stress, and a lot of times, like people find it difficulty to get their attention off of trying to go. It's like, why don't we incorporate, like, if you ever try going to the bathroom in a stall or something, it's difficult when people start walking in. You want to be quiet, you start worrying about the people. And why don't we just incorporate art? Like, I've seen so many like professional bathrooms, single bathrooms. It's so comfortable because when you sit down, they have like candles laid out.
Oh
They
yeah.
got they got everything in there. And sometimes you get stuck in the bathroom. Like, you've been in there 55 minutes. Like, sorry, I was enjoying the fucking painting you had on the wall of two birds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's great ambiance. How can I not take this in? Yeah, but I'm all for that. Honestly, I think it should be in more places like that. Serious, it's a good thing to have that shit out there.
I think it's I like what you did. That was a shit reference. I like it. But
Definitely had to put a shit reference in.
it was the fact is art is a giant stress relief. Like it's one of the most important things I think of. And I really never truly appreciated it until I went to college. Like I took an art appreciation class. So it
Mhm.
really kind of was supposed to be the point of that class was to appreciate art more. But I started looking at it as a form of psychology. I'm very
Yeah,
fascinated with the human mind and how people come to conclusions on things and their environmental influences that bring them there. When we look at art, I have one painting in my studio right now, Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night. Now, when you look at it, you think immediately acid trip. Um, but it's very, very important. I mean, I'm looking at it now and seeing all the lines and drawings from this painting, and you start to realize that he painted that outside of his asylum window. Like he was looking outside of his asylum window and saw this view and saw this perception of what the world was like, and he used such abstract colors to really bring a painting into whole. You can tell by the brush strokes. A common person will see a Mona Lisa and they'll just see a woman,
yeah,
but do you ever look
right.
deeper into the detail, such as how the strokes go across the canvas, or how even the styling of certain things are, if certain objects were placed in there at random, or are they placed in there to really catch your eye?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And yeah, it's like Starry Night. You're exactly right. He wasn't, he's not in a good place. He actually, I think he selfly went into to get help and stayed in the asylum there for a while. He was really sick. Um, and that's like the main, like, I love that progression of looking at art and kind of seeing what their life was like at the time. You're right. It's not just looking at a picture. It's not just, oh, that's cool. That's a very good detailed woman's face. There is a whole story behind it. There's reasons behind it, and then you can even get into like conspiracies behind why that was done that way and who it was done for, and at the time what was going on around history at the times that these paintings were made. So yeah, it's so much deeper. I think we're kind of losing that now in the art world. I think it's more of a, I hate to say it, but I think it's more of a money driven business. But
I think
yeah.
it's just people got a little bit lazy with their art. I mean, I enjoy and appreciate all art, and sadly, the thing is, what can get away with now is putting a dot on a canvas and then
Sure.
just picking an extremely deep meaning to it. Like, this dot represents the isolation mankind faces in a world full of blank, just normless faces. And I'm like, okay, or did you just put a dot on a canvas and sell it for $200,000? I mean, if someone wants to go buy that, that's fine. But whatever
Mhm.
happened to the original styles of art? I mean, stuff that when you looked at it, you're like, this person took a lot of fucking time to put into this. And when we talk about art being a form of stress relief, I mean, that's a reason why they teach it to kids at such a young age. That's why there's art class. It's like one of their most enjoyable classes because it allows expression. But even with there's conspiracy theories that Vincent van Gogh was suffering from a form of schizophrenia. Like,
Right.
you're seeing through the eyes of what he saw through with dealing with that mental disorder. This is why if you go into any type of outpatient care or type where there's like a mental like asylum or something where people are suffering from a severe disorder and can't function properly, they have paintings out, they have art class, they have all these types of things because it lets a person express themselves if they're not able to do it on their own. Their mind can wander with a paintbrush. They can create such magnificent things. We look at things like the Mona Lisa that's apparently not finished, even though we all
Sure.
love it. And some dude recently just he recreated the Mona Lisa using Rubik's cubes.
Oh yeah, it's
Like,
insane.
that's amazing. Like, where did
Yeah.
you get your inspiration for this? Like, I got it from an art appreciation class. When did you start to decide you wanted to become a painter or just paint in general?
For me, it was. I mean, I was born with a crayon. It's there's like several defining moments in my life where there was no way I was getting away from it. I was always art and music heavy. In grade school, I was always coloring. I always had a book. I was. It is not a bad thing. I was an only child, so rainy days, snow days, family vacations. I was by myself. I had a normal childhood. I grew up in Northeast Philadelphia, and in a great neighborhood, big families. I always had kids around. We were always out, doing stupid shit. But yeah, you had those days where there's nothing going on. You're stuck in the house, and I drew and I colored, and as I got older, just things just kind of started lining up for me. I started noticing things in the world. One of the biggest things for me was we always used to me and my parents always used to go camping, and we would go to sometimes we go to Jersey, sometimes go down to like Maryland or Virginia, North Carolina, and we always just jump on 95, take 95 south, and you would see as you're going down. Now this is like I'd say probably about mid 80s at the time. You would go down and you see all these buildings, kind of encroaching on the 95. And it had all these like I noticed like 7 or 8 years old. I noticed all these like weird letters on the buildings and bright colors. Sometimes it would have a little character, on them and everything. And I was like, what the hell is that about? Like, why is that on top of a building? Why is this on the side of a wall? Like, it was just like graffiti was just getting popular. And I was like, this is the strangest thing. I was like, there's billboards right here. Why don't they put those things on the billboards to show the people? Why are they on top of these buildings? And I got to the point where I just started seeing it so much. I asked my parents. Granted, like I said, I'm 7 or 8 years old, and I'm like, what's going on with all this writing around here, Mom? And she's like, oh, that's what bad kids do. And that was it for me. I was like, well, that's fascinating. I was like, bad kids do this stuff? I'm like, I'm in 100%. That's it.
I guess you could say
And
that's probably partially the reason I always got kicked out of class was because they would just put me in a room where I could just sketch or draw or something.
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
why don't we incorporate art a lot more? I feel like once we get older and we're able to understand a little bit more and where knowledge is kind of more key and importance when it comes to reading and math, it's like, but fuck, in art class, like that lets out so much anger, so much things. It's a form of therapy.
It 100% is. It's your purest self. I mean, art and music, I think that's who you can't fake that. It's exactly who you are, and if you're doing it right, it works. I mean, I think artists, it definitely brings out struggles and whatnot, but I think the purest people are, artists and musicians. That's who you're going to get the truth from, and sometimes actors. But for the most part, people that are creating, I think are some of the most interesting people to sit down and talk to.
What do you find to be the things that you like to paint about the most? I mean, we talk about the Navy and stuff. I notice that a lot of
Yeah.
your stuff happens to focus with water creatures.
Yeah, that was definitely my biggest thing. From from being in the Navy is having that connection to the water. Also, it's just like water creatures are actually just fun to paint. They have interesting. I mean, there's endless, absolutely endless amounts of different things you can do with the ocean creatures. But mostly it's my travels. That is my biggest inspiration. Being in the Navy 20 years, I've been everywhere. There's not anything in this world I haven't seen. Like literally, I have been all the way around the world. And the best part was, seeing art, experiencing culture, meeting different people, the food, and that all kind of is over the years has made the art what it is. And I'm continuing. I'm experimenting with some things right now. I've always back in my Navy days when I couldn't actually sit down to be an artist because you're never in one place for too long, so you can't establish yourself as an artist. That's why I'm really pushing to do it more seriously now. And yeah, I've always gone through this evolution of the things around me and putting that into my art. So yeah, the sea creatures now is kind of like, yeah, my reflection back on being on the water for so long.
I feel like when I try and get into a zone to paint, I have to have those moments. Like I just randomly get an inspiration, or I have to set up my environment around me, whether it's putting in headphones or whether it's kind of getting
Yeah.
into a place where like my mind is cool. You know what I mean? Trying to
Yep.
paint frustrated is very, very difficult because you're not focused inside of the painting. Um, I usually find when I do sketches of something, they happen to do a lot with space, which is kind of where the reference for the name of the podcast came from,
Yep.
but mostly just in collaboration. Like I'm a fan of like when I see types of reggae infused art, such as like swirling colors and such symbolistic things that bring a sense of calmness to somebody, using like the basic blues, dark
Mhm.
purples, stuff that represents a little bit of a mood to it, but not anger. If I'm feeling like I want to paint something like a sunset or sunrise or something, the color combinations and the differences can truly make a painting unique. I mean, the amount of art that is out there, no matter like I never look at art and I say, oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's this. Oh, that's that. I
Right.
say, did you try or did you not try? When you look at an art, I mean, a simple fucking hand on a piece of paper traced and making a turkey is art. You know,
Yeah.
that's some of the best art. I mean, shit. Shout out to my nephew. He's doing that right now. And
Exactly.
types of paintings, but like even like I find myself fascinated with pastel art. Like that was a
Mm.
pain in the ass for me.
Yep.
Using a crayon was okay. I liked doing it. A shout out to Applebee's Fridays and Outback. Those places were amazing when they gave me the crayon and I was coloring and shit. But when it comes to pastel art, that stuff always got off on my fingers. I end up pressing way too hard, making it way too
Yeah.
blurred up. And the people that can blend the colors together perfectly is fucking amazing.
It is. It's absolutely insane, and it's all about how much you're doing it, and and creating the evolution of where you start from and where you can possibly be. And I tell people that all the time. Like I get into so many conversations with like friends and families that are like, oh, how do you do? I don't have the talent. That's the biggest thing that they say. Like, oh, I'm just not talented. I'm just not. And when I sit and talk to them, it's like, well, have you ever like sat down to paint? Yeah, I can't. I can't. I'm not creative. I can't do it. So there's not even for a lot of people. There's no try. And it's you have to get to into it. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to actually sit down, take the time, screw a lot of shit up because you're not just going to make this masterpiece in 20 minutes. I think that's that's what people think that's what's going to happen. And it takes years. I'm nowhere near at where I want to be. There's so much to learn, and that's why I get out and I talk to other artists and I watch videos and and get out to galleries and things and study. Because it's never ending. It's always evolving, and people don't understand. It's like, well, you just woke up one day and started painting, and that's what you got. It's not that at all. It's a constant evolution of, oh shit, this don't work for me. Let me do this. Oh, I screwed this up. And I constantly, when I'm painting now, I always have usually a small canvas next to me that I'll try some stuff out on, and I'm like, oh, okay, that color works with that. That's blending over that, and then I go on to the canvas that I'm working on, and work it out that way, and I still screw it up, and it's not working out perfectly all the time. You see these masters, and there's a huge line of screw ups before they get to what they can actually where they're actually at. With the
Yeah, well,
finished
see,
product.
the problem with that is it's like if it's just when someone's trying to learn art and they're trying to really get onto the basis of it, it's very, very difficult when you see so many amazing paintings and so many different talents and unique creative styles. I mean, when I draw something and I'm like, damn, that looks good. And I remember in my art class, there was this girl that had a sketchbook and she would never show it. She would always hide. And usually those are the kids in school that get made fun of, but they're some of the most talented ones. And I
Yeah,
walked over and she had a Native American kind of drawing on her thing and with like the giant headdress and all. And I was like, this
yeah.
is fucking awesome. And she started like, I was like, can I see more of your sketches? And she was way older than I was by like, she thinks she was a senior. I was a freshman. And she was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, are you making fun of me? I'm like, no, can I see more of these? And she's showing me a whole bunch of them, finds out she has her own art site and everything. And I'm like, some of the people that you would
Yeah.
never think of have the biggest creativity passion to them. I mean, it does suck if you're like me and you can only really draw stick figures. I still can't draw fucking hands or feet. Those are the
I'm right
most
with you on that.
difficult. My person looks like I don't even know, like he's got like bananas for feet and stuff. But when I was looking at that and saw the extreme detail from the shading, from all these different variations of pressing down the pencil, getting a darker shade and going to a lighter
Yeah.
version, it all plays into a giant factor. But it is kind of discreditable, like for me, as a trying to go off and paint something and think it's awesome, and then I look and see that I'm like, well, then mine's shit. That's for a lot of people. They feel like, oh, since they tried something and they fail because they look at someone else's painting. I'm like, no, give it time. It's like a muscle. You have to build it up. You have to understand it and you have to learn it.
Yeah. Hey, you're exactly right. People don't understand. People don't get the time. You got to put in your just like anything else. You got to put in your 10,000 hours if you're going to try out anything. I always tell people, like, look, if you're going to commit to something, commit to it for at a minimum. Give yourself 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, you're going to be better at anything you try to do from start to the end of that 6 weeks. Um, don't just sit down. Give it a shot. And be like, well, that's not for me. I don't really think you're going to get into too many cool things if you have that kind of attitude. And I tell friends that I have one friend that I paint with who is awful, absolutely awful for the longest time, and then something clicked, and he was like, "Oh man, check this out! I did this with this," and I'm like, "That's pretty good," and that's all he needed, that little boost of confidence. Like, look, last week I was shit, but I did this, and it turned out to be okay. And then he's an amazing artist. I see his stuff around all the time, and it's unbelievable. And yeah, I mean, I've been in those situations where I walked into shows, hung my stuff up, and looked around, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm the worst artist in here. And then I've been on the opposite side of that. I just did a few months ago, I did a small pop up show, and there was a lot of students there, and when they put up all their stuff, and like I was the old guy in the room, and which was kind of odd. But they all looked at me like nobody talked to me. Like nobody wanted to come over and say something. And they kind of got in their little group and hung out. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? And they're like, oh, you come walking in here and put these magnificent masterpieces up. And I'm like, dude, you kidding me? And they're like, oh yeah, we're just like in awe of your work. That's such a weird side to be on. It really is like, thanks. I can't take compliments like that. And it was really nice. It's cool. And then I got to like shed some of my wisdom, I guess, to them. And, we're all kind of our little group now. So, it's great to be around that. Artists are great people to be around. Everybody's always trying to pull each other up. I love
Well,
that.
that's the best thing about like if you're into a hobby, you're into a passion, if you're around people that aren't experiencing the same thing as you, all the time, like if you're doing art or painting or photography and you're around someone that sits there and discredits photography or you're bad around bad environmental influences, such as people like, oh, why are you doing that? Why painting stupid? Why are you doing painting? If they keep telling you that, it's going to make a more of a, I guess, it's going to turn it into a job when you start painting. Like, why am I doing this? He said it's stupid. I shouldn't be doing this. It's like, no, if you surround yourself with people that are creative like that, there, where you're constantly like, you could be riffing over a cup of coffee or something. And next thing
Yeah.
you know, you're like, dude, imagine if you could, and then you shoot an idea out and they don't discredit it. They don't say that's stupid or whatever and totally gloss over it. What do you want to eat or something? They sit there and they feed into it. Like, yeah, imagine. And then you could do a nice shading of this and a nice thing. It's called good conversation. So many
Yeah.
times people don't have the patience to sit down and do something. I mean, how long did it take for you to do your squid painting?
That one was over a year, and it wasn't constant. It was back. I put it to the side for a while, work on some other stuff, and I do that with a lot of my paintings. I'll get to a point where I'm like, I don't want to tackle this yet because I'm not sure I'm going to nail this, or I'm not sure I'm where I want to be.
Well, Da Vinci was working on the Mona Lisa for a few years he was working on it and he was never finished. He believed that art was never finished, just left undone. He believed that if you took a time step back or whatever, took a couple days
Mhm.
or something, looked at the painting again, you would find adjustments, you would find something to get back into it. People think it all has to be done in one sitting, and that's just
Oh
not
yeah.
how art works.
No, you're exactly right, and I've done that. I've sat down on Saturday afternoons and just done a small piece, just to get it out. I have an idea in my head, and I'll just waste a Saturday painting. And then like other bigger stuff that I do, yeah, I rotate usually about 4 or 5 paintings. Like I'm gonna work on a little bit of this today, or you're just not in the mood to look at that painting anymore. It's been sitting on the easel for like a month, and you're like, I can't stand the sight of you, and that's why I'm not married. Uh, and you put it to the side and you pull another one out and you're like, all right, let me get a little bit of this done. I haven't worked on you in a while. I haven't done this in a while. And you just kind of have this like nice little cycle of fresh stuff in front of you that you can just constantly work on. Like you said, you're never done. I have to get to that point where you just start detailing and then you over detail. And then I'm like, you know what? I got to put a signature on this and just put it in the side and put it in the corner and, put it on, Instagram or something like that. Let people say, hey, that's awesome. And then move on.
Yeah. I think that's a benefit of social media and technology now is the fact that people can put up their art and they can hashtag it something and people will come across and they'll find those positive influences. Whenever
Oh
you
yeah.
look at art culture, even though you might have people on your whatever that follow you that don't really like the stuff you're posting, you'll find somebody who looks at that painting and be like, holy shit, that's awesome. Like, whoa, like makes me want to trip out, like take mushrooms and look at a painting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Starry Night
Exactly.
does. But when you look at the type of things that people pull from it, like for me, I remember the reason that it connected with me so well was in our appreciation class. He knew I liked psychology, and he said, I want you to use psychoanalysis to start understanding art. So he gave me this
Mhm.
kind of a picture of a bowl of fruit, and I'm like looking at it, I'm like, it's another fucking bowl of fruit painting.
Right.
This is one in like 50,000. And where
Yeah.
everybody was like, it's just bowl of fruit. It's just a bowl of fruit. I started looking at it deeper. I was like, did he use that cloth because maybe that had some type of influence to him as a child? He used a weird, unique silk cloth that the bowl was on top of that had some Italian kind of style to it. Then immediately my mind started imaging the room that it was in, like it was in this kind of looked like a kitchen. But I was like, is it in Paris? Is it in France? Is it in something in Italy? Is it something? And my mind just started wandering where I started writing down paragraphs upon paragraphs with my analysis on it. And he looked at it and he read it in front of the class. He was like, he's like, to pull that from a fruit painting, like that's true creativity. And I was like, we just need to look at art a little bit deeper. Let's, instead of, standing back where the rope tells us to not go any closer so we're not breathing on it, but look deep into the detail and try and find why they use the brushstroke that way. What kind of effect does it play? All these types of characteristics from the shading to the colors to really capture your attention and make you try and feel something from art. I mean, when you look at art, nobody should ever look at a true art piece and think the same exact thing. It should be like looking at a cloud. You guys should see two completely different things.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's not just a picture. There's always a deeper meaning. There's always a story, and it can go anywhere. It's what you think. It's what they think. That's why I always say when we have art conversations and stuff, like nobody knows anything about art. Like that's like the best way to put it. Like nobody knows anything about art. It's what the individual thinks and what the artist is painting, and that relationship between the two. Anything else, like that's why it's always tough, like, to put these conversations where it's like, oh, Jackson Pollock's go for millions, and Barnett Newman's go for millions, and they're so like, oh, I just threw paint on something and I'm a millionaire now. It's not that. People don't understand that it's a life story. It's a situation. It's something around that painting. It's what the artist's life was about. That brought that specific whatever kind of painting it is, just a bunch of paint splattered on a canvas, to its value. And I think people really kind of cheapen that by just saying, "Oh wow, I just threw some paint on there, and now he's a millionaire." Well, it's
You
not
mean
that
taping
at
a banana to a fucking wall and then
all.
keep changing the banana because you figure out that a banana freaking decomposes, I guess you'd say?
Is that the most ridiculous thing ever? I mean, when that all came out, I was like, yeah, that's where we're at now. But the same thing is, like, I get it. Like, you can do that. There's no other world where that would happen. And I think that what did it go for, like 120? I think $120,000.
I get it, man, and I understand, but then I look at it and I'm like, come on, like, did you just do it because you were like, hey, fuck you, I can make money off this? But I mean, people pull whatever they want from, I guess, art, and maybe somebody pulled that and thought it was going to be some hip trend. But a lot of times, like art connoisseurs, all these types of things, they're not buying from what means something to them. They're buying something that they think is going to be super popular, what's going to be trendy. It's like you lose the establishment of what the art is. The painting should go to a person or go to a place where people are actually going to enjoy it and truly take it in.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it's not like that now. It's what the popular thing is. It's what celebrities and stuff are like. Some of your huge influences in art now. It's just like, oh yeah, that dude is got this really cool thing, and I'm gonna buy it, and then because a celebrity bought it or something, now they're worth millions. Well, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and for what? Like, I don't get it a lot of times. And it's not great art. It's just something that they liked, and who am I to question it? Honestly.
Well, how does this go to the food truck? Is that because you're creating art with your food?
Yeah. Well, the food truck it's more, yeah, it's more related now than it was when we first started. But in the beginning, I just moved back to Philly after getting out of the Navy, and a buddy of mine, we were high school friends forever. Actually, I used to date his sister in high school, and he was a little brother. But he's been a chef in Philly for over 20 years, and he had a restaurant down here in Center City. I think it was like 12th and Market, called Ida Pita. And as soon as he opened it up, they scaffolded the building around, and he got no foot traffic at all, and didn't do good his first year. And he took whatever money he had left, and decided to get into this food truck thing. I happened to be just getting myself settled in Philly and hanging out with friends again. And he called me up one day and he's like, "Yo, I'm doing this food truck thing." It's like, "What do you think?" I was like, "Oh, hell no, that's a bad idea. I'll do that." And he kind of wrote me into it a little bit. He started doing it. He did, like, I think one or two events by himself, and he had this big thing set up in Jersey. It was like a big festival set up, and he calls me up and he's like, "Yo, look, I think I might have got into over my head a little bit. I'm doing this, by myself. I'm not, barely keep my head above water, with cooking and serving and everything." He's like, "Can you help me out?" I said, yeah, absolutely. So I drove out to Jersey, no knowledge of anything. Like I said, I kind of know some art, and I know some Navy stuff. That's the depth of my life. And I went out there, and he's this big time chef, and I get on the truck, and he shows me the grill, and he's like, "Yeah, I cook this like this. I do this here. This goes together. This looks like that. That's what that does." We have like 6 or 7 menu items now. It's like, all right, I'll do the best I can, dude. And we opened the window and we got slammed. And for probably the next 7 hours, I just had my head shoved into a grill and I was just throwing food around, just doing. And like the whole Navy training, came in like, "This is your mission, get it done. Ah. And we knocked it out of the park. And at the end, we kind of went outside and sat down in a corner and had a beer. And he was like, "Dude, you're not going nowhere." He's like, "You're on this now." and we partnered up and came up with this whole the Scooby Doo style thing. The food truck's called the Munchy Machine, by the way. It's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
I figured that was a little bit of your influence coming at it, because I feel like what really attracts people to a food truck is either if it's super super basic, or if it's something that really catches their attention, like eye popping type stuff. And you have literally a food truck that's painted like the fucking Mystery Machine, and you call
Isn't
it
that
the
amazing?
Munchy Machine. So it's, when I looked at it, I was like, oh shit, Scooby Doo. I mean, even if you sell vegan food, I'm gonna go up there just because it's the Munchy Machine.
And you're exactly right. That was actually mostly my partner. He, we of course we're '80s kids and stuff. It's what we grew up around, and we he didn't want to do a themed truck like a taco truck or a burger truck or a hot dog truck. It's he wanted the theme to be fluid to any kind of food. So exactly what you said. Like people are going to walk up and be like, "Well, what do you do?" And we're like, oh, we're kind of like a comfort food, for stoners type situation. It's like, and that's what it attracts. Everybody always walks up to the truck and like, guys, are you 420 friendly, man? And I'm like, well, I work for the government, and my friend here is the school teacher. So,
But you're our best audience, because what do stoners like to eat? Everything on the menu.
exactly, and our menu does change a lot. We have a few staples that we keep on there when people come up, they're like, "Oh, I come here because you have this item."
Do you sell
But
Scooby snacks?
yeah, we have Scooby stacks are usually our desserts, but in the summertime we actually do make homemade dog treats. So yeah, we fit right into that mold. It's awesome.
Where how do you typically stylize your menu, depending on where you're going, or do you
Yeah.
try and stick around a basis of some food too? Like, what's your top selling thing? I mean, you got something called the Munchy Machine, so it's like, what are you selling that's good for a stoner? Are we talking about Frosted Flakes? Because I mean, I can kill a bowl of cereal when I'm pretty up there.
We have like our staples. One of our best sellers, we do a chicken and waffle cone. It's like a popcorn style chicken, and everything we do is homemade, by the way. We do a popcorn style chicken and shoved into a waffle cone with bacon and maple glaze on it. That's going nowhere. That was actually my partner's niece just came up with it one day, and we're like, yeah, actually at the time he was like, yeah, that's going on the menu, and it's never died. Um, Great stoner thing we got is the patacho. We have our own potato chips, and we do it like a nacho style with a salsa and sour cream and some lime, and we sometimes put some bacon and some pork belly or something on top of it. And those are our two main things that will probably never go anywhere. And then we tailor the menu kind of for where we're at. If we do festivals, if it's a theme style festival, we'll come up with some catchy thing. If we do a lot of breweries, a lot of wineries, so we're always kind of matching beer food up. We do a lot of cool grilled cheese sandwiches. We do pierogies with our own style cheese sauce, with kielbasa. Like everything we have to buy is like real nice local good stuff. So it's always geared towards wherever the hell we're at. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing too. Like, you're getting kind of more of what I would say of fresh ingredients. It's kind of needed when it comes to
Yeah,
food, because yeah, the processed shit's really good when you're high, but it makes you feel like shit. I mean, that stuff gets amplified. Like, I'll never forget, I got so stoned that I ended up doing I used to be really big into chicken tenders, and I think this is what killed it for me. Um that Ken's steak, or the Ken's honey mustard, the sauce,
oh yeah.
the steak dinner, whatever, the giant ones, I would drown my chicken tenders in that shit. I mean, where it was like soup. And I remember I ate a whole thing of chicken tenders, and I had that, like, that, all that sauce inside me. I got so high, dude, that I was getting the spins, and like literally was like the craziest thing I've ever been on. And I literally got so sick because I couldn't, my mind wouldn't stop spinning, like, and I couldn't go to bed. So I literally just puked all that up. And I mean, you want to know when your body starts feeling like shit is when it's amplified by marijuana. But that makes you
That's
look
all
at
it
things.
takes.
Yeah, it makes you look at things differently. Like, some people won't eat when they're high, or some people, when they eat way too much and they end up getting sick or killing their high.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
eat some vegetables, eat something, because you're gonna feel a hell of a lot better afterwards. You're gonna be like, wow, I feel good. Like, and you start being more conscious about the stuff you're doing too. Like, maybe I shouldn't be having 12 cups of coffee right now. Maybe I should be consuming water. Maybe I should be trying like a nice, like, beverage, but easing it and truly appreciating it.
Oh yeah, and we get it a lot. I mean, well, most of the time we're out at these festivals and stuff like that. It's more, I mean, people are more with their families, so we don't run into it as much as you would think. But yeah, people definitely like, especially the worst is when you're driving down the road. When you take that thing and put it on 95, or you're out in Jersey, or out in like Westchester area. Yeah, you get a lot of like college kids coming up and just freaking out, like, oh my god, this is the greatest truck I've ever seen in my life. Oh, you guys are nuts. Everybody's taking pictures with it and everything. So, we love it.
And you always got the one dude that's like, "Can I see the menu?" It's like, it's right there. And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." He's looking at it for like 45 minutes, and he's like, "So many options. So many
There's
options."
there's a lot of that. We get, and I love it all, man. It's so funny. A lot of people come up and uh, they want it a certain way. Like, hey, do you have this? And can I have mine like that? And can you put that on the side and this, that, and the other thing? It's like, when it all boils down, you're just giving them like a little paper boat full of chicken. It's like, I don't think you should be hitting up the food truck, sweetheart. I think you be stay at home and make yourself some Pop-Tarts or something, because food truck food is probably not for a lot of people that come up.
You
And
become an artist when you're stoned in the kitchen. I don't know
oh
what
yeah,
it
it's
is.
amazing.
It's like Little Dicky's song when he's like making a whole bunch of things with chicken tenders and he forgets about them like halfway through the song. It's like, I think the wise words of any stoner I've ever heard were, the biggest decisions are the one when it comes to food. Like when you walk into a grocery store, if you walk into like a convenience store to get some candy, you're like, fuck, there's so many options. It becomes like a moral decision where you're holding a Three Musketeers and like a freaking Kit Kat in your hand. Like, do I want something crunchy? But maybe the crunch will be too loud or it'll scare me. And like you start having these thoughts. I'm like, fuck, if imagine trying to be stoned and creating like a whole kitchen menu, you would go to shit like, you look at it in the morning, you're like, did you want to mix ravioli, spaghettios, and you wanted to mix it with Doritos? Yeah, man, that would be delicious. It's like, yeah, but the smoothness and the crunch together would cause someone to chip a tooth.
Oh yeah, it's incredible, and what you can come up with, and we actually do that. We've done sandwiches, man. We put like Funyuns in them, and shit like that. Like, because definitely catering to the crowd, and people are like, come up and they see like, oh my god, man, you put Funyuns on that sandwich? That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
Like, yeah, that's what you gotta do,
you're representing the Mystery Machine, but really,
right?
who's the main people you think of when you mention the Mystery Machine? You think of Scooby and Shaggy, so you got to think of
Exactly.
those weird combinations. They were all about food too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and we try to at the best we can is to get weird with it without putting it, making it off-putting and too specific where people are like, they don't get it. I mean, we have tons of people that come up and have no idea. They're like, "Oh, I like your truck." We're like, "Oh, thanks." And then, like, because we have some Scooby Doo stuff on the inside of the truck, and they're like, "What's the deal with Scooby Doo?" And you're like, "Dude, seriously?"
You don't like Scooby Doo? Like,
And there's there's always somebody in line like behind them, like, that's what their truck looks like. It's the Scooby Doo van, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even get that." And you're like, "Oh, that's cool. Well, there you
pick
are."
pick a different truck, bro.
Like, that's why people are usually come up to us, because they like the Scooby Doo theme of it. We're still waiting to get our asses sued, by the way. So
You'll be
just be on the lookout.
okay. You'll be okay. I think the Scooby Doo creators are pretty cool. They had an episode where Kiss was on there, so I think we're all right.
Yeah, if you got Kiss and the Globetrotters on your show, you're not gonna mess with anybody. I
Well,
love it.
Sean, I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast, man. It's been good chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. It was a great, fun thing to do, man. It's awesome.
If you want to shout out some of your links where people can follow your food truck, where people can follow your Instagram page, just so they can see your art as well, or anything like a site or something you want to put, feel free to do so.
Yeah, definitely. So the food truck, we're at Munchy Machine. We're on Facebook at Munchy Machine as well. Um, the art side of life is going to be, my Instagram is at Sack the Squid, is SACTHESQUID, and I also just started an Etsy page. I got well, I was in condo. I got talked into doing it. So there's a couple pieces on there that I'm selling. So that's Saccomandi Studios. It's SACCOMANDI Studios. Go on there, check out some of the work. It's all for sale, obviously. And yeah, that's about it. My biggest thing right now coming up is from, was it March? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, March 1st to May 1st, I'm going to have some of my work being displayed up on the 57th floor of the observation deck of Liberty One. So if anybody is in town and visiting, or you're local in the Philly area and you get over there, yeah, my work will be up there on the observation deck of Liberty One for a while. It's pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much, Sean, and thanks for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.